Have you ever watched a podcast and you really, really love this podcast? Like, I mean, the host on point, the topics are always compelling, the guests are always interesting, and you are invested in it and you are loving this podcast. Like, oh man, I cannot wait until next week. I can't wait until next week. And then next week doesn't come. And then the following week doesn't come. And then after that doesn't come. And it's been a couple months. It's like, okay, well, what happened? Then they pop up out of nowhere, like, oh, they're back. Like, yes, yes, yes. And then the next week doesn't come. Next week doesn't come. Then they're back, like, oh, we are here to keep you from being that. We are here to turn you into Ricky Lake instead of Ricky Flake. That's what we're here to do. Because that's Marion.
You know what? And Joe.
And I am a podcast pro.
Yo, I need you to understand that it's never a dull moment with this.
You ain't know where I was going with that, did you?
Ricky Lake instead of Ricky Fake. Okay, you're right. Pro. We are pros. Listen, pro.
Right.
P. We are purposeful. Listen, be the answer to the question. That's the purpose in what you're doing. Be the answer to the question. Be resilient no matter what takes place. Always be ready to keep on moving. My God, keep on moving. Listen, be outstanding. Outstanding. Stand out as your unique self. Listen, doing in that moment the best that you can do with what you have and who you are in that moment. Listen, we're always evolving and growing. Joe, what we got for the people today?
Well, you set it up because you said the 3 key words that if people have seen the promos, they already know which way we're going, but they don't know exactly what the one thing is, but they know they got to keep on moving.
Don't stop.
That's right. Don't stop. You got to keep going. The train got to keep going. It got to keep moving. But the one thing that you need in order to be successful as a podcaster is consistency. You have to be consistent.
Say it again.
Consistency. Like, if you're going to say that you're going to do this thing, you got to be serious about it. You got to be committed to it. You got to say, hey, I'm actually going to do this, but you also have to be realistic with your expectations. We're gonna actually break down the ABCs of consistency. We're gonna take it back to grade school for some of y'all. You know what I'm saying? That's not to, be condescending or anything, but sometimes you just got to break things down to the basics, and the basics are the ABCs. So the A is you have to assess. And what I mean by that is you have to say, you know what? I have this great idea for this podcast, and I'm really excited about it, and I think it could be very impactful. But you have to say to yourself, like, what do I have going on in my life? Because the bottom line is that we are adults. Those of us who are doing this thing, and it's not to say that people who start podcasts, everybody has to be an adult, but most of the people that are starting podcasts, that are making impact, are adults. And in your adult life, so many things can get in the way, whether you have families, you have careers, you have other responsibilities. You may be somebody that really wants to, you might be a fitness enthusiast and you are in the gym a lot. You may be somebody who is really invested in your home and doing a lot of things to maintain your home, and that is very time consuming. And it might not be just the normal, I keep my home clean, I cut my grass. It's like, no. You might be growing gardens, like you might be feeding people in your neighborhood. Like, it might be that serious. And I say all that to say is that you have to take an assessment of everything that you have going on so that you don't set these super lofty expectations for what you want to do with a potential podcast. And I'll give you a perfect example. And I'll give you a recent example. I was going to give a past example, but I'll start with the present and then maybe work my way backwards. So recently I was approached by two guys who, like, when I say there aren't too many people that I would love to do a brand new podcast with other than these two brothers, I would absolutely love to do a podcast with these two brothers. I mean, these are two of my favorite people. One brother is somebody that's like really put me on when it's come to like music stuff. And the other brother is the same way, but they've both done it in different ways. And they inbox me and say, hey, we should do a podcast together, but an in-person podcast together. And when I first saw the message, I was like, it would be so awesome. But I had to take an assessment of what's going on in my life. I'm a brand new homeowner. I'm a brand new homeowner in the Baltimore area. I no longer live in the DC area. These brothers, thank you very much. Thank you very much. These brothers are in the DC area. And for anybody who's watching this that doesn't know the difference between Baltimore and DC in terms of that distance, traffic has gotten progressively worse in this area over the last 20 years. I mean, progressively worse. It takes forever to get everywhere. So now it's not to say that everywhere I go would be necessarily DC, but even to get to different parts of what is considered the DMV or the DMV that's around the Beltway DMV, that whole conversation, another conversation we're not going to address on this program. But anyway, if you are trying to get around, just the time to travel somewhere to get in order to shoot a podcast on location, that's going to be hard enough in and of itself. That's number one. Number two, the bandwidth, the mental bandwidth that I have these days, because not only is it the distance, but it's also the fact that I do a lot of stuff at home with my son because my wife physically goes into work. I telework. So I have a lot more flexibility when it comes to different things, but I have a lot less flexibility when it comes to different things because I'm the one that's home with my son, our son, while he's home, making sure he's doing his homework, making sure he eats and all of these different things until she comes home. And by the time she comes home, it's about that time for him to go to bed a lot of nights. And so because I have all of these different responsibilities that I have going on, I have to say to myself, how realistic is it for me to do an in-person podcast? Yeah, I can do an online podcast. I could, do what me and Marion do every Wednesday. But to do an in-person podcast would take a lot more energy out of me. When by the end of my week, I barely have the energy because I'm dealing with work, I'm dealing with home stuff, I'm dealing with whatever else that I'm dealing with during that week. That is like I don't really have the time to do but so much. And that's me saying, yes, I would love to do this podcast. I know it would be great because I know these brothers. I know we would get together and put together some great content. But I had to take an assessment of what I'm able to do so that I don't sit here and try to commit to something that I'm not going to be able to fully commit to. Because too many times in the past, from my experience, I have overcommitted to a multitude of podcasts. There's been times I've done 4 or 5 different types of podcasts at a time, whether I've done 2 with other people, 3 on my own, or 4 on my own, whatever it might be. I've had too many instances of doing too much at once. And then by the time I get to a certain point, I am tapped out. And so let this be a cautionary tale for everybody that's watching this right now. Take that assessment to say, okay, what can I do realistically? What will take the least amount of energy out of me, but I still can, so that I can give the proper amount of energy that this podcast deserves. I have this great idea, but I don't want to shortchange it by trying to do too much at one time. So you have to assess your time, you have to assess your energy, you have to assess your responsibilities. These are things that are very, very important in order for you to maintain consistency in your podcast and in your brand. So that's the A of this ABC of consistency. Marion, what's the B?
The B in this consistency that's needed to be a podcaster. Listen, this consistency that is Because without this one thing, success is impossible. It's impossible to be successful without consistency. I have to start there. Absolutely impossible to be successful. So you did the A, you did the assessing. I'm going to do the B, and that B is believing. Number one, you need to believe in your message. The message that you're sharing, the information that you're bringing, that value that you're pouring out on the people, you need to believe in that. And the key to believing in that is having confidence. Confidence in what you're saying, what you're sharing, the fact that you've been through it, so therefore sharing it makes it easy. Do you know why it was so easy for us to pick the word that we knew could sum up what you need for success? The reason why we picked consistency is because we both have our own story. The reason why I'm talking about belief is because I have my own story. There was time when I was kind of wavering with what I wanted to share. I'm like, no this, no this, no this, no that. And that back and forth made me have to go, hold on. What is it? What is it that you want to bring to the table? What value do you want someone to walk away with? And that's why I have to start with confidence is key. You have to be confident in what you're sharing. Because guess what? If you're not confident in it, it comes across. People can plainly see, they can plainly hear, yeah, it doesn't sound like they really know what they're talking about. They're sharing something, but the delivery of it doesn't really have an impact. It's not sticking to me. I'm not trusting it. That's that confidence is key in that mission that you have. That confidence, that consistency, it actually fuels you to keep going. To keep going when you can't see your way, to keep going when you don't understand. Listen, Joe said, "Oh, I'm gonna talk about something relevant. I'm gonna talk about something right now. We're gonna talk about this muddy camera I'm on right now. We're gonna talk about this bedroom light that I'm under right now. We're gonna talk about the headphones that I don't have on right now. You know why? Because above all of those things, the thing I'm holding on to is consistency. We're going to talk about how this is our 18th episode, and this is the first one that's not live.
Yeah.
We needed to record it. And guess what? It's like be consistent or be stubborn and hold on to the fact that we want to be live all. No, let's be consistent.
Yes.
Let's come together at a different time because you need to be doing, I'm tending to something that's very important to me. But I said, you know what? I can carve out 30 minutes to an hour for us to sit down and put this recording together and then just post it at the time when our community is expecting to see it, to receive, to hear that value. That right there, that's the belief in what I'm doing. We believe in this. That's the fuel to make you stay consistent. In times when your partner can't be there, somebody should be like, yo, you know what? I got it. But guess what? Guess what? We're even about to start putting those episodes in the chamber. So when neither of us are available, there's still value to be brought. That's because we believe in our mission. We're confident in what we're bringing, the value that we're bringing. We believe in that process. The process of getting better and better over time.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
you wouldn't think in this moment that it's better that my camera is fuzzy because I'm using the laptop camera instead of the camera that I was gifted. I didn't even have to buy it. Somebody believed in me and they gifted me a camera. I was gifted a beautiful light that illuminates just the way I want. I was gifted the backdrop that I normally podcast from. Those are things that people invested in me, or even if you invest in yourself, that's fine. My first steps were all investments of my own. But see, I believe in the process. And so
Yes.
I wouldn't say it's a failure to go, wow, you got to episode 18 and then you went with, listen to me, what I had available
Mm-hmm.
to bring the
Mm-hmm.
message forward. That's
Mm-hmm.
how I see this episode.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
standing on business right now. This is
Mm-hmm.
important to me.
Yeah.
So if I had to do a dim light, that's okay. You don't need to see my face. You need to hear what I got to say.
Right. Right.
So there are times when you have to trust the process. That thing don't feel comfortable. Trust me, he had to wait until I was like, wait, can you hear me? You can't hear me? Let me
Mm-hmm.
fix this sound. Let me do this. He's like, turn it off, turn it on. Because that's what IT always says first. You have to trust the process. We were
Mm-hmm.
determined to make sure we were going to be able to bring this message to you.
Yeah.
You gotta trust the process. It doesn't always look as you want it to look. It doesn't always feel as comfortable as you want it to feel. You don't always see the results that you're expecting to see, but trust the process. The last B under believe I want to talk about, believe in yourself. Self-doubt is the biggest killer of consistency.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just believing I can't do it. Listen, on Confident You podcast, I got to episode 3. The person bailed out, and I was like, wait. I got like stuttering. I was stuck.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. How am I supposed to? Then I had to stop and take a breath. And you know why I was able to go ahead and do that episode? Because I did what Joe already talked about. I did that A.
Mm-hmm.
I did that assessment already. I already knew why I was there and what I was there for, what
Mm-hmm.
my mission was, what my vision was.
Yep.
I already had my why. So I pulled myself together and I figured it out.
Yeah.
You know why? Because I couldn't let that doubt kill my consistency, which my first year on my podcast, that's what my word was. I said, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not looking at anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not looking at views. I'm not looking at likes. I'm not looking at anything else but myself.
Yeah.
I got to build me to be
Mm-hmm.
built for this. I'm built for this. But
Yeah.
guess what? Even in being built for this, you heard Joe talk about that gym. Yeah, you got to put in your reps in
Mm-hmm.
getting this information out and coming up with that outline and actually sitting there and speaking. And sometimes even having to go, yo, can you wait a minute? Or, hey, I'm going to need to do this early and we're going to need to edit and drop that on this day because it's Thanksgiving. It might just be a holiday. I'm just using an example.
Mm-hmm.
That's just one that's coming up. But you still want to make sure that your self-doubt, you don't allow that to grow in you, to compromise your consistency.
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead, Joe. Give him that C.
So we done already talked about you got to assess. Marion has eloquently broken down. You got to believe. The C and the ABCs of consistency is you have to commit. That might be the most important one because if you don't commit, you have assessed and believed for nothing. So in committing, you have to say, okay, what's my time? How much time do I have to give to this? And I don't mean just the time that you give to it in terms of what time you go on. Let's even take it a step before that. How much time can I actually give to making this the best possible product that I can make it? Do I have a half hour, an hour to prepare for what I'm about to do? At least, at the very least. I'm not saying you got to sit there and spend 2 hours to prepare. But what I am saying is that you have to understand that if you want this thing to have, if you want it to be successful, you have to be consistently committed in order to practice the art of consistency. So you have to say, okay, I know I have this guest coming on. Let me take the time to do my research on this guest. If it's a specific topic we're going to be talking about, let me take the time to actually get somewhat versed. I don't have to be an expert in it, but somewhat versed enough in it so that I don't sit here, that I can actually add to the conversation while still allowing them to be the star of the show. If I don't have a guest on, if it's just me, let me make sure that I have some talking points so that I'm not just talking all over the place and you're not able to follow what it is that I'm saying. Because at the end of the day, let's also bring it back to one of the things that we constantly say when it comes to the type of content that you're creating. You're not doing it for just yourself. You are adding value to your community. If your community cannot get value out of what you're presenting to them, especially if you have not taken the time to make sure that they can get the most value out of it, your community will see it. They will recognize it. It will come off instantly that you did not spend enough time dedicating yourself to making sure that what you are rolling out is your best product. I always see, Marion, you know us, like a lot of things we think biblically. I always think about when God talks about the first fruit. It's not the first, it's not the very first thing that you put out. It's the best. It's the best product that you put out. It's the first of the best that you put out. So if you are actually putting the time in to make sure that what you are putting out in front of everybody is your first fruit, people are going to get more out of that first fruit. There's going to be more benefit to that first fruit that they get from you because they can see, you know what? He dedicated himself. She dedicated herself to making sure that this one episode was top tier. These 2 episodes, these 3 episodes, these 4 episodes, top tier, back to back to back to back. That's just the pregame. Then we talk about what's your schedule going to be like. Maybe you can do a show every week. That's fine. Maybe you can do multiple shows in a week. That's fine. Maybe you're a bi-weekly person. Maybe you're a monthly person. Maybe you're a seasonal person. Maybe you actually have a seasonal podcast. That's also possible. But the bottom line is when you are setting whatever schedule, you are also creating an expectation with your community that they expect to see you 3 times a week, 2 times a week, 1 time a week, every other week, once a month, once every season, whatever your schedule is. You have to make sure that you are setting that expectation realistically for yourself and creating that expectation for your community so that they're not kind of left in the wind wondering when you're going to come back with an episode for something. Because I'll be honest, for me, I have had a podcast where I had a specific amount of consistency, but then it just kind of wore thin on me after a while. Like, yeah, this is a lot because I had all the other things that I had going on. And it was like, I don't have it. I don't have it. Are you pointing to yourself too?
Yes. Yes.
Look, the thing is, we're not telling you anything in any of these episodes that we have. I don't care what the topic is. We're not telling you anything that we haven't already experienced. So if we're telling you that the commitment is one of the most important things, belief is one of the most important things, assessment is one of the most important things when it comes to establishing consistency, it's because we have already had the trial and error in our own experiences. So I will just lay it out there. So my Flowers Friday series, people have been asking for so long, when are you bringing that back? And the bottom line is there have been a lot of things going on in my life that I haven't really been able to bring it back to the way that I want to bring it back because it's like my focus has just been different lately. And also, I don't want to stretch myself too thin by having too many podcasts at once. Now, granted, it's a monthly podcast, so it became a monthly podcast. But at the same time, even monthly can be a bit much because it's preparation. It's, talking to people about certain things. It's so much that's involved energy wise, even for a half hour sometimes, especially if I'm already doing something. And so, but my thing is, for a while, the commitment was every Friday. Then after a while, the commitment was, I want to say maybe the second or third or whatever Friday it might have been, you know what I'm saying, or once a month. The bottom line is that I had to get to a certain point where it was like, okay, what is comfortable for me and what can I commit myself to? You have to say, okay, I know the direction I want to go in with this podcast. I believe in my ability to be able to present this in a way that people can receive it and get some value out of it. Now I have to commit myself to this schedule, this realistic schedule. Figure out the day of the week that you want to do it, the days of the week that you want to do it. What's a day of the week where you don't have as much going on and you can do this thing and feel like, okay, I'm not draining myself on this day. When I did bars, I picked Wednesday because Wednesday was always the easiest day for me. When I had compressed time at my job, Wednesday was I had every other Wednesday. So it was like, okay, well, this is easy. First and foremost, I go into work at 2:00 in the afternoon. So that's easy. You know what I'm saying? I do this podcast from 12 to 2. Go straight to work right after I'm finished with the show. Boom. See? Easy. And when I don't have to go to work on a Wednesday, just go straight to the show. Boom. Everything worked out in the way that it was supposed to work out because I had already figured out what is the easiest day of the week for me. It wasn't Monday because it's the very beginning of the week. And honestly, I did a radio show on a Monday. It was okay, but I preferred Wednesdays. Tuesdays is always one of them weird days. Thursdays, I feel like it's always a lot going on Thursdays. And I never like doing Fridays because Friday is my favorite day of the week. And that's the day of the week I just want to chill. So, like it's that realistic expectation with certain things,
I like that you said realistic expectation, because even in us sharing, be consistent. You don't want to be consistent to the point that it harms your relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be consistent to the point. What'd you say?
I could say more, but we ain't got that kind of time. As soon as you said that, I could have a whole story about that. But that right there, right there. Ooh.
Yeah. The consistency, it can't, so the consistency that we're talking about, I love the fact that you said realistic. You have to be realistic. Don't over obligate yourself to something that you cannot uphold realistically. Know how to say no. As a guest, know how to go, this is an amazing opportunity. In this moment, I'm not going to be able to do it. How can we look at this other date? Can we do this? Can we get around this? And then as a host, don't be discouraged when someone can't be on your show. That's the example. That's what I got from even saying the example and hearing it. I didn't get discouraged. You cannot get discouraged because you can't hold other people to be obligated to your responsibility. But then don't over promise yourself in responsibilities.
That's
you
right.
have to be, the key word to this consistency is realistic. I myself started Confident You podcast with consistency being the thing. I consistently did it even on the day that I lost my brother. Like, and I'm not saying that to say I should not have done it. It actually helped me.
Yeah.
It actually made me feel like I was able to spend that last day with him, seeing me and knowing that he had already passed. And my guess not knowing that he had passed earlier that day just made me go, brother, listen, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to
Yeah.
keep living. I'm going to keep striving. You're going to find that there are so many ways that this is going to not just serve your community. It's going to serve you.
Yeah.
So it just made me feel proud knowing it's like, wow, he's gone. And in my mind, his first time in heavens, looking down and seeing that I'm okay
Yeah.
and that I can do this.
Yeah.
And that I'm going to carry on this great thing that he thought was so amazing of me doing, sharing my voice and my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So it is something that consistency, but it cannot harm your relationship. It cannot harm your spirituality. It cannot harm your mental. It cannot harm your physical. You have to, your financial, you have to make sure that you're putting this obligation in the position that it's supposed to be in your life. You should itemize that assessment is very important to itemize those things. This is important in this way. This is important in this way. This is important in this way. As much as I would love for my screen to be crystal clear and there not to be this glare on my glasses and the blurriness of the camera, as much as I would love for it to be perfect, it's more important. The consistency component that I'm holding on to is getting this message out. So
Mm-hmm.
even as a guest, you want to make sure there are some things with that consistency, that some tips I just wanted to share. You want to make sure that you're being vulnerable and that you're sharing your story just as we do right now. It makes it more impactful, more memorable, and more relatable for your community, actually for
Mm-hmm.
yourself. As I
Yeah.
said, sometimes these episodes are healing for me to come to realizations as I'm sharing things. As a guest, you want to give your value to who it's for. Joe did just say that we like to take things biblical. Listen, don't throw your pearls with swine.
Mm. Come on now.
Don't go sharing your value somewhere daggone where you shouldn't be.
Right.
It goes against everything in you to be there
Mm-hmm.
on this platform, sharing in this way, sharing with this person. It just doesn't, if everything about it disagree, pay attention to yourself. You will tell. And the other thing I want to share for guests is, don't assume that this one, I hate when people say this little episode. Oh, I'll do this little show. I'll do this one little You never know.
Oh yeah.
You never
Yeah.
know who that might impact. You never know who might see it. You never know how that might impact you. And don't forget,
Mm-hmm.
these things live on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Right. Right.
You want to make sure you're seen in the light that God wants you to be in.
That's right. That's
Listen,
right.
and as a host, your story and your platform is very, very important. It's going to speak to the community that you're going to draw. It's going to draw not your friends and your cousin and your auntie who you already thought, oh, these the people I already know that need to hear it. It's going to draw the people you didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that consistency is important.
Yeah.
That's why this is without this one thing, success
Mm-hmm.
is impossible.
That's right.
Consistency. Without
Yes.
consistency, success is impossible. How are you going to stay in the trenches when you don't feel like having on your uniform, let alone being out there doing what it is you're supposed to be doing?
Yep.
You just
Yep.
don't feel like it.
Yeah.
But guess what? There are times you don't feel like it, and you still going to need to show up and do what you do. You're going to
Mhm.
have to take and lay aside those heavy weights and do that thing you do. They're going to be right
That's
there.
right.
Nobody's going to pick up your misery, your upset, none of that. None of that. Your anger,
Yeah.
none of it. It's all going to be
Yeah.
sitting there waiting. We get off of here and life is still lifing. When I get off of here, I'm still going to have to go up and make sure my sister is good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's who I'm here taking care of.
Yeah.
I did a
Yeah.
whole season of Confident You podcast. while she was recuperating from surgery. But she was like, Shelly, you keep doing your show. I'm her little sister. You keep doing your show. So I'll be fine during that time that you're going to go live and do your show. Don't stop doing it. Keep being you. Keep letting your voice be heard.
Yeah.
There's strength in the long-term vision. You got to know why you're doing it.
That's
because
right.
every time you feel weak and every time you feel like giving up, and every time that consistency is compromised, to go back to that vision. Say, hey, there's a scale. You need to weigh. Am I being lazy?
Right.
Am I, it's like, am I just doing this because I want to be comfortable? I just don't feel like it right now. Not helpful.
Right.
Not helpful. That is why, without this one thing, success is impossible. Go ahead, Joe. Do what you do.
Yeah, so I'm going to say one thing to kind of put a little bow on it. Everything just eloquent that you just said. So a lot of y'all know I'm a sports guy. Like I watch a lot of sports related stuff. So I was watching NFL Live, and Andrew Hawkins, he played for, I believe, the Cleveland Browns, the Cincinnati Bengals, and I forget the other teams that he played for. But now he's an analyst on ESPN and prominently on NFL Live. So he says something today that is going to be the quote that I refer to probably ad nauseum. And so he said, you can't unlock what you're capable of until you show the ability to unlock what you're supposed to do. You could be capable of having a great podcast, but until you unlock the ability to be consistent, you're not going to be able to unlock the ability to have a great podcast. And that's why we titled this show the way that we titled it. Without this one thing, and that one thing being consistency, success is impossible. So make sure that what you're doing, you are assessing everything that's going on in your life and realistically saying, I can do this, believing that you can do it, and going to something that you said, man, that was absolutely powerful. Belief builds consistency. It fuels it. The more you believe in yourself, the more you're going to want to do it. The more that you see that you are able to do this thing and be great at it, to be excellent at it, to be professional at it, the more that you're going to want to do it. It's just how that works. And then be committed. Say, I can dedicate my energy, my time, and this much of it to making this thing the best possible thing that it possibly can be, in order to make sure that not only, it's not about us. When we do these things, it's not about us. It's never about us. It's about, for some people it is. But those of us who actually care about our product, those of us who actually care about what it is that we're putting out there, it is for the community. It is to add value to everybody that's watching, that's listening, so that they have something that they take away and it stays with them. And it helps them to be better at whatever it is that they're seeking to be better at. Those are the ABCs of consistency. And that is the way that you can say, in all of the many ways, in the 18 times that we've come on, that is just another way that you can say to yourself and say to the world, I am a podcast pro. Marion, you want to break that pro one more time?
Yes, and pro, P, purposeful, R, resilient. Oh, outstanding. Stand out as your uniquely amazing self. And listen, what we need you to do is keep on moving. Don't stop. No.
That's right. That's right. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And you can keep on moving to our Instagram page. If you haven't already followed us, make sure that you hit us up at I Am a Podcast Pro. keep on moving to our Facebook group if you haven't already joined. I am a podcast pro with Marion and Joe on Facebook. And keep on moving those subscriptions. Keep on moving those like buttons. Keep on moving those shares right here on YouTube. We are at I Am a Podcast Pro. And keep on moving those suggestions. If there are things that you want us to talk about that you feel like would help you as a podcaster, or you feel like just needs to be talked about that you don't hear other people talking about, please feel free to email us at IamAPodcastPro@gmail.com. Once again, IamAPodcastPro@gmail.com. We welcome all suggestions. We welcome all questions, and we will address them right here on this very podcast. So we'd like to thank everybody that tuned in live, that tuned in on a replay. And we really, really hope you got some value out of this particular episode, as we hope that you do out of all of the episodes that we present to you, because we really care about making sure that you are a podcast pro.
Yes, let's get it.